Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our content. Today, we're diving into something that so many of us struggle with, feeling overwhelmed by expectations and the pressure to be perfect. But what if I told you that it's okay to take a step back, that you don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders? Stick around, because this story might just change the way you see things. And if you've ever felt like you're drowning in responsibilities, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Now, let's get into it. It was one of those mornings when everything felt heavy. The weight of the world seemed to be pressing down on her chest, suffocating her with every breath. She had woken up late, again. But that wasn't what bothered her. It was the looming pressure of expectations that had been following her around for as long as she could remember. Expectations from family, friends, colleagues. The list was endless. She stared at her phone, scrolling through the endless messages of well-meaning reminders. Have you finished that project yet? Don't forget the meeting this afternoon. You need to be at your best every single day. She felt like she was drowning in a sea of obligations. Every task, every reminder felt like another weight added to her already heavy shoulders. The struggle begins. As she walked to work, her mind raced through everything she had to do. The demands of her job, the never-ending to-do lists, the need to prove herself. She was constantly chasing after perfection, trying to meet everyone's expectations, even if it meant neglecting her own well-being. She used to dream about finding balance, about waking up in the morning without the sense of dread that had become all too familiar. But now, that dream felt like a distant memory, something that belonged to another life, another version of herself. It wasn't until she reached the office that the real question hit her. Why was she doing this? Why was she running on a hamster wheel, constantly moving but never getting anywhere? The pressure was suffocating, and the more she tried to keep up, the more she felt like she was losing herself. It was as if she had become a character in someone else's story, living out expectations that weren't even her own. The office was buzzing with activity, but she felt like an outsider. The conversations around her felt distant, as if she were listening to a world that didn't belong to her. Her desk was cluttered with papers, yet her mind was even more chaotic. It had become harder and harder to focus. She couldn't ignore the voice inside her head anymore. It whispered, "Is this really what you want? Are you happy?" The constant pressure of being perfect was starting to feel like a lie. She had always prided herself on being the one who could handle everything, the one who was always on top of it. But the truth was, she was exhausted, and now she was beginning to question everything. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. It was from her mom. "Are you coming for dinner tonight? It's been a while since we've seen you." She stared at the screen, feeling a knot form in her stomach. She had promised her family that she would visit more, but every time she tried to make plans, something always came up. Her work, her commitments, her own expectations of herself, they always seemed to take priority. But the message felt different today. It was like a reminder that she was not just running away from her own life, but from the people who cared about her. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. The office around her faded. As she stepped outside, her heart pounding. It wasn't just the pressure of her career that was wearing her down. It was her inability to set boundaries, to say no, to stop pleasing everyone else. Standing in the quiet of the parking lot, she looked up at the sky, taking a deep breath. She realized she had been chasing someone else's dream. And in the process, she had lost sight of her own. Later that night, she sat in her living room, her mind still racing. The conversation with her mom lingered in her thoughts, but it wasn't just the dinner invitation that kept coming back to her. It was everything. the constant cycle of striving, pleasing, and overworking. She picked up her phone, scrolling through the calendar filled with deadlines, appointments, and expectations. She thought about how every moment of her life seemed scheduled by someone else. There was no room for spontaneity, no room for joy. She sighed, realizing that something needed to change. But change was hard. The fear of disappointing others, of not living up to the expectations placed on her, made the idea of letting go feel impossible. What if people stopped relying on her? What if they thought she was weak? The next morning, a message popped up from her best friend. "Hey, do you want to grab coffee today? It's been a while. No work talk, just us." She hesitated, knowing how much she had to do, but something in her gut told her to accept. "Yes," she replied. "Let's do it." As she met her friend at the cafe, she realized just how much she had missed moments like this, simple, genuine connections. Her friend could see the exhaustion in her eyes. "You've been burning the candle at both ends, haven't you?" she said. Her friend's words hit her like a ton of bricks. It wasn't just the physical exhaustion. It was the emotional toll of living a life dictated by expectations. They sat together, sipping coffee and talking about everything and nothing. It was the first time in months she felt truly present. Her friend reminded her of something she had long forgotten. You don't have to do everything for everyone. You deserve to take a step back and breathe. In that moment, she felt a flicker of hope, a reminder that she had the power to redefine her life. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was possible to start creating space for herself again. For the next few days, she focused on small changes. It wasn't about making a big leap, no drastic moves or overnight transformations. It was about taking back control piece by piece. She began setting clear boundaries, saying no to requests that didn't align with her goals or values. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't always comfortable, but each time she did it, she felt a little lighter. One evening, she sat down with a journal, something she hadn't done in years. As the pen hit the paper, she allowed herself to explore her feelings, the doubts, the fears, the hopes. Writing had always been her escape, but she had neglected it in the rush to meet everyone's demands. Now, it was a way to reconnect with herself. But even with these small victories, the fear lingered. What if people noticed the change and resented her for it? What if they didn't understand why she was stepping back, why she was no longer always available? The pressure to be everything to everyone still haunted her. And yet, every time she made a decision for herself, it felt like a tiny act of rebellion. A rebellion against the idea that she had to be perfect. A rebellion against the idea that she was defined by the roles others expected her to play. The breakthrough came one afternoon when she found herself at a crossroads. She had the opportunity to take on another project, one that promised to be a huge career booster. But it would require more of her time, more of her energy, and she wasn't sure she could give any more. As she pondered the decision, she realized that her worth wasn't tied to how much she could accomplish. She didn't have to prove anything to anyone. For the first time in a long while, she recognized that her value was in simply being herself, without the weight of others' expectations. The morning sun streamed through the window, casting a warm glow over the room. For the first time in months, she felt at peace. The weight that had once been so heavy was now something she could breathe through, something she could live with, instead of drowning under. She had made the decision. She wasn't going to take on that extra project. She wasn't going to continue living her life chasing after an idea of success that wasn't even her own. Instead, she would focus on what truly mattered: her happiness, her well-being, and her own path forward. She picked up the phone and sent a message to her mom. "I'll be over for dinner tonight. I've missed you." It felt good to say those words, to prioritize something meaningful over the constant rush of work. In that moment, she realized something profound. The world hadn't stopped spinning because she had said no. In fact, it felt like it had slowed down, allowing her to finally catch her breath. She smiled, a sense of freedom washing over her. She wasn't perfect, and that was okay. She didn't have to be everything to everyone, she just had to be enough for herself. The road ahead wouldn't be without challenges. She knew that. But for the first time in a long while, she felt empowered to face them. She could choose how to move forward. She could take the time to nurture herself and the relationships that truly mattered. And, most importantly, she could live a life that reflected who she was, not who others wanted her to be. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel and check out the next story to learn even